we're not saying, well, you will never make it as a psychologist. We're saying maybe go and do something for like 6 months. Because sometimes
grow up.
You know, sometimes you need to go and work at McDonald's. Ufunda abantu.
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of The Conversation Capital. As always, the voice of a reason. Ubonga Bwetahenga.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How's Asante?
Asante's good. She's growing.
How's it been there since you were on camera? Have people been DMing you? Because everyone's like, she's so pretty.
No DMs, but what is this? Not that I'm looking, please.
Don't take it the wrong way.
Don't take it the wrong way. But it was just like, finally, I think all of us have been like, oh, people are glad to see the face with associated with the voice.
Yes,
so yeah, it's been quite interesting.
That's lovely. And then today we want to chat all things to do with psychology. I think the statistics around, mental health and this and that. And recently I was at a mental health talk and they were talking about how there aren't enough clinical psychologists to treat the people with mental health. So we've brought in a very special guest who is a psychologist, research psychologist, a research psychologist over at UJ. She's also a curriculum designer and a lecturer. Thandokazi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. And so we just want to chat about the track of becoming a psychologist, the different types of psychology. I mean, so many things have come to the fore for me. I've been very, very interested in psychology lately. I've been feeling like that is my secret calling. And just figuring out, my way there. And then I've just learned so many things of how difficult it is to get into clinical psychology, how you need to go all the way to a master's, you need to register with the HBC. And I said, how many people know this? There's so many kids that leave home going to Northwest University to whoever saying, let's a psychology. And they never become psychologists, learning that there's something called an industrial psychologist versus and so that's what we want to chat to you today about. So maybe let's start off with you. Who are you and what industry are you in? What is a research psychologist? And let's start there so that we can see the frame of reference. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm Thandokazi, Maseti, Thando. I am a research psychologist. I trained with the University of Western Cape. Grew up in Cape Town, Delft, Cape Flats. Home is in the Eastern Cape. And I really was one of those people that didn't know what they wanted to do. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, at some point a nurse, like just a whole lot of stuff. And I remember walking into student administration, and this guy said to me, have you ever heard about psychology? Was a faculty officer or a faculty administrator. Ever heard about psychology? I'm like, no, sounds like something I would want to do. Also, I was a bit desperate. So it says there's a thing called Bachelor of Arts. And now you're thinking psychology, Bachelor of Arts, how do they mix? And he says you can do this degree called Bachelor of Arts and we can curate it in such a way that in your third year you are a psychology major and you can go and do your honors. So in my head I thought, okay, I'm gonna be a psychologist after year 3, year 4, right? And my first year of psychology, I hope I'm not like you let me know when I'm rambling too much.
No.
You can never ramble here.
Yeah, this is Ramble Central.
So then I remember, I think one of my first lectures and in psychology, like Psychology 1, Introduction to Psychology, this man comes through, greets us and then says, so there's about 1,000 of you in class today. How many of you are psychology majors? Like, yay. How many of you want to be psychologists? Why do you want to be a psychologist? Yes, I want to help people. I want to, like we're all just excited 17, 18-year-olds. And then he says, well, in 3 years' time, there will be 300 of you in this class. And all of you will want to get into honors and probably only 10 of you from this class will get in because there's other classes and we can only take 50 at the time honor students. And in a couple of years, probably only 2 of you will become psychologists. And then right?
Why do people
But for me,
they did this to us as well. Why do lecturers do this?
Everyone that's been in varsity has that one class where they said,
actually,
you're not going to make it.
There'll be 10 of you at the end of this.
Yes.
And for me, I'm listening to your story And we were also told that, because I did industrial psych up until honors. And then we were told this, but it didn't click, man. I still thought I'm going to be a psychologist in 3 years. It doesn't click until, like that one is not enough.
Some psychologist is diagnosing you with delusion. Delulu. Because I must be honest, me too. I was just like, well, I think the two is me and somebody else. Yeah, we all feel like we're the one of the two.
It didn't click. No, man. There's so much more to being a psychologist. So yeah, in class.
Yes, so I do then this BA degree that. So at the time, there was a thing called Bachelor of Psychology, which they did away with. So in some universities, it's still there. And there you were training to be a psychologist. And by the end of your 4 year, it was a 4-year track. So by the end of that 4 years, part of it was like a 6 months internship in a counseling site, like maybe a rape crisis, like a depression and anxiety center, something like that, or a clinic. And for 6 months, you would work under supervision as a counselor. And so that like was more appealing. Like we all thought, those are the real psychologists. Why are we not part of that? And they were doing like just psychology. We were majoring in psychology, Bachelor of Arts, and then we had to take other stuff. So in my first year, I remember I had ethics, I had library sciences, I had anthropology, sociology, like just in J, like choice assorted, like, you know. And then in second year, someone advised that I have 3 majors. And then like that would then allow me to venture into whatever.
Wow, you did a triple major.
Yeah. So if psychology doesn't work, sociology could work, gender studies could work. So you could only take gender studies in second year because gender studies and 18-year-olds at the time, it was like, yeah, they're going to talk about difficult things here. What do you know about patriarchy? So then I did gender studies, I did sociology, I did psychology, second year and third year. By the time I got to third year, I became smarter, I think. Like I started being part of the few. Like I could tell that, oh, okay, I think I'm in the top 10% in school, because then like you get all these awards, Golden Key, you make the Dean's List. So you move around knowing about, oh, okay, I'm one of the
Dean's List?
Yes.
You can't just go past that like it's nothing. Dean's List. La bona
This is our list. And then she says it like we all got it.
Yeah.
And then you get
Dean's List.
You got Dean's List.
Okay.
You got into Golden Key, but yes, please move on.
And I really started, like I loved learning. Like I think there were a lot of things that happened to me, and maybe like when I come back we'll speak about this. Because I think in my first year I really got to really check in with myself. I got to understand, like I had the theory to back up everything that was happening to me. Wow. So I was really invested. I'm like, this is nice. I'm learning, but I'm growing as a person. I'm getting insight into, this is why my mom did this, my dad that. And obviously it's a bit like a psychology major is a bit annoying, like the first 2 years, 3 years, because you get restless. Like everything is like, childhood trauma, pathology, right? Oh, that's a psychosis.
Linda, as soon as as soon as I meet a psychologist, I'm always like, they're paranoia. She's gonna diagnose me with paranoia.
Yeah.
This is what separates people with passion and people without.
Yes.
Because I can remember a time where it was just school to me. Okay, the brain and what.
Yes.
So this is what separates.
Yes.
And as we're getting into the topic, this is what will distinguish who will get into some programs and who will not.
Sure.
But this is great, because for some of us it was just learning. No, I'm a better person now, guys. But
I hear what
it was just going through a course,
because you guys have a similar trajectory.
Yes.
And what she's talking about, you're like,
no.
And maybe I got my epiphany.
CPF, crumb pass forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I got my epiphany at a later stage. But I mean, first you're already reckoning with so much.
Right.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah. I really loved school. Like I love varsity. I loved leaving home and staying at res, having my own bed, because I come from a very big family. So there were just a lot of incentives around studying. Like I could have like dedicated space, and for me that was a big thing. And also then when you get invited to these dinners and you learn that you're part of the top whatever, like the lecturer knows you, the department knows you, you're moving around the department like a different way. So there was that comfort, and I also just felt like my brain was working for me, my mind, my curiosity about certain things. So people started knowing me in the department. So then I applied for honors, right? And there's like thousands of applications, and I got in, and there were 50 of us. So there were 50 of us, 10 were part-time, 20 were in one class from 9 until 11. I was in the 11 until 1. So there were 20 of us in my class. And I really, really loved it. But the thing about psychology was, it was just really all these theories outside of South Africa, right? Bo Freud, Bo Erik Erikson, and trying to bring psychology into the South African context was a bit of work. And it was quite shallow at the time. So your teachers would say, well, define this theory, contextualize it, like think about the South African society, and then apply it. You know, so that was very shallow. And I started like having some discomfort, because now also like I am reading, I am speaking to people, so I'm beginning to question the discipline. But even my questions are not like fully refined. The class that really helped me like sit with the discomfort, that created a space where I could question. Because remember, first year to third year, you're like, I just want to be part of the 50. So you also behave a certain way, because you want to be nice, you don't want to stand out, but you want to be seen and to be heard, for them to know you, but to not think you are a problem. Because there's also like rumors of racism. There's like rumors that, they only take this kind of people. They'll just take like 2 of you, you know, just to have a little bit of black.
Quota.
Right. So then at honors, I took a module called social psychology. And that's like something I've been teaching the past 5-7 years now where I work. That was like the first module that I took where I felt like I could excel. I was like, all these black people. I learned about Frans Fanon. I learned about Steve Biko. We were speaking about Chimamanda. We were speaking about African stories, like real people. And it felt like home, right? And I remember then my professor at the time, Umesh Bawa, shout out, comes to me and says, so next year, what are you doing? I'm like, clinical psychology. Obviously, we all want to be clinical psychologists, right? And he said, I want to write you a reference letter, but only if you will consider research psychology. I don't want you to do clinical psychology. I'm like, no, I want to help people. I want to treat. I want to diagnose pathology. I want, and he says, nothing will frustrate you more than that. The kind of questions you have will not be answered in that.
That is so true.
Right?
Because we are quite behind in terms of our content in that aspect. We are getting there, but
we are getting there. No, we are quite behind. And so I just stayed with him. I mean, he comes to me, I think, first term. So I'm like, I have time, and I hear what you say, but...
No, but also, guys, we work at you are quite behind in that context and what. Maybe if we can just backtrack for somebody listening who's like, I'm hearing a lot of English. What's the difference between a clinical psychologist and a research psychologist? Okay. Maybe let's just start there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So a clinical psychologist is trained to deal with pathology. So this is a person that is trained to understand, to know psychological disorders such as your anxiety disorders, your depressive disorders, eating disorders, like all of, right? And they treat psychosis then in that way. So they'll help you manage post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, and the likes. While a research psychologist is, we do research that will inform the treatment of, pathology. And the thing for me, like that, I mean, I didn't have that knowledge at the time. And I think this guy, like my lecturer, this is what he saw. Research psychologists typically are interested in broader societal pathologies. So I'm very sensitive to like issues like institutional racism and how it affects your soul, your psyche. And I do research with Black students, with Black women in academia that are trying to navigate academia, and I'm doing that work in a psychology department, and I use psychological theory to help us understand racism, to help us understand what happens to a nation like ours that was that went through what we've gone through. So I was always interested in that. Whereas a clinical psychologist is able to deal with a disease, and helping you manage your day to day while living with a psychological disorder. And a counseling psychologist will help you manage your day to day. So they will see someone that is struggling with major depressive disorder, but maybe not for a long time, anxiety disorder, but they will not diagnose. They will not treat, but they'll help you manage. Yes, and just your interpersonal day to day.
Clinical psychologist isn't the one that sits and has a therapy session with you.
Not typically not. So I mean so all of them will have like a clinical psychologist will have a practice, but typically they will see a client that has some psychological disorder. I don't know if I'm saying if that's now the terminology, but if you're dealing with major depression, maybe bipolar, so you will go to a clinical psychologist rather than a counseling psychologist. Yes.
Okay, and then day to day, I'm going through a divorce. I just failed, and I need help navigating. I go to a counseling psychologist.
So you get counseling. You get someone that holds your hand and gives you the tools that will help you with whatever you're struggling with. And then your research. I think I have tried to explain it, but it really the psychological research will inform everything that happens in practice. Right?
True.
Yes.
Right. So typically in a tertiary hospital in South Africa, you will see a clinical psychologist as part of the team. But they are different than from a psychiatrist, because a psychiatrist is a medical doctor, medical doctor that then does psychiatry as a, what do you call it? As a specialist, right? Yes. So if a clinical psychologist is sitting in their practice, you're a clinical psychologist, and you're dealing with a case of maybe there's you want to, because you can't prescribe medicine as a clinical psychologist, but you can work with a psychiatrist to come up with a treatment plan, and because then they are trained in that like a doctor to prescribe, and then you can help with the managing of that disorder.
Okay. And then maybe this one is for Bonga. What's an industrial psychologist?
So I Googled it. I mean, I did it.
You studied it.
I did it.
But, okay.
I want to give you guys proper things because I like saying, now when people ask me, I like saying it's a psychologist for the workplace. So it's like what Thando said with research psychology. It's applying psychological concepts or theory in the workplace. So with industrial psychologists, maybe I'll join a company and then I will look at their processes, your training and development. How do I optimize it for your success as a company and for your employees?
So when is on wellness week? Wellness week.
No, I like that.
Employee wellness
week. Because I like that, because that's what a lot of people think. But perhaps I would sit with a training manual and I would say, this is not the way I would suggest for you to do this type of training, to be using this type of training for this particular thing. So you optimize their processes. So yes, I could do a wellness activity, but I'm more.
But looking at the minds of people.
Yes.
In the organization, how to
optimize their presence in the company, and for you, your profitability.
So who's the person that becomes a work psychologist?
What do you mean work psychologist?
I'm
counseling. You can as an industrial psychologist. You can. But I guess there's also different streams.
So you're the one that teaches people languages like I've got a hard stop at 5.
You've got
a hard stop at 5. Do you guys know that thing?
No.
in corporate to be like, I don't compromise on my working hours.
Oh, okay.
Leave it healthy.
now-
I have a hard stop at 5. It means, darling.
Yes,
don't email
I
me
would
at
tell
5:30.
companies that the importance of a work-life balance.
Sure.
So I would say to a company, you have to make sure all your employees strictly, you're finding ways on how to make the workplace better for human beings, and honestly for both the company and the person, because I'm optimizing your training so that you're able to train better, so that you get more out of your people.
Somebody who goes on to be a psychologist specifically for like addiction therapy and things like that, what string would they have gone into?
I think clinical. Clinical.
I see.
Because if you think about substance dependence,
Yes.
that's,
Okay. It's a lot of medication
yes,
and okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Now, let's talk about the process of getting into. I mean, you've already walked us all the way up to the master's level.
Yeah.
Because when I found out that you needed a master's degree, I was like, damn.
And not just a
It's
master's
actually quite a
degree, there's
different
also an
thing.
exam, isn't it?
board exam.
Yes, there's a board exam.
Okay, so for clinical counseling research, so clinical research counseling, those are the ones that I'm quite familiar with. So I did professional training in research psychology. Not everyone does that. So there are people who do their honors in psychology, and maybe you go and work and then you come back later and you get into a master's program, but you will do like master's by dissertation only, where you're not in class, you're just doing your research, but it is in a psychology department, and then you later wish to register as a research psychologist with the Health Professionals Council of South Africa. Then they have their own requirements, what you need to do, because you didn't do professional training. Then maybe they'll say you need like 10 publications, you need to publish 10, I'm not sure if it's 10 publications, then write your board exams, and then you get accredited as a research psychologist, right? So that's one way getting into being a research psychologist. The track that I followed, and then like went back, but okay. So I got into a master's program, and it was professional training. So I had a full year of doing my courses. So it was coursework and dissertation. So you sit in a class every day, you have lectures like in different things. And I always encourage people that have a mind like mine. Like if you see me and you feel like you identify with my story, like that's the one for you. Go there. And UWC is great. I went there, obviously, so I'll always say go to UWC. Vets is also great. There's a lot of other universities, but not everyone will have that professional training in research psychology. So you have that 2 years really to take. The first year you're doing your modules, and then the other year you're doing your research. We did it all at the same time because they wanted us to go and do our internships. Then you go and do your internship, and this is similar with counseling and clinical. So you are in class, and then you do your thesis. A lot of people then will be doing their internship while completing their research. So part of the requirement is that you do that internship for a full year, and you will only graduate or write your board exams once you have completed the research. So especially, I think when you are a research when you are a clinical or a counseling, it's easy to think, well, research is like it's not important to me. But then that second year teaches you in your master's that research is as important. So a lot of people get stuck there, right? So you have to then finish your dissertation, and then you write your board exams, and then you'll then graduate and you go and practice. So I think with clinical, you take a year and do your in-service, your ComServe. Whereas with the counseling and the research psychology, then you get your board exam, then you start practicing. So in total, you are studying for like 7 years.
Yep.
7 years. But you come in to this Bachelor of Arts majoring in psychology, not knowing that this is what, it's not really what you've signed for, right? And I mentioned my story of just coming in clueless, because a lot of the people that we sit with,
I agree.
Yeah.
It's like psychology or Bachelor of Arts is the way people run to.
Yes.
When they've gotten a bachelor's degree pass, and they want to squeeze, and then they realize that
Yep.
I've chosen something that's actually indelendlela.
in
And actually, just the Bachelor of Arts altogether, I mean, there are instances where you get people who get a job fresh out of varsity after Bachelor of Arts, but most people have to go really high
Right.
to get a job, just a BA in anthropology, a BA in sociology.
Yes.
Interestingly, how I started varsity, I was doing a Bachelor of Social Work. I did it for like 3 years, and then I didn't like it. Then I dropped out.
3 years in.
Yeah, 3 years in. Then I dropped out, and then I went back here. But part of my dropping out was like...
When you went back, did you start first year?
No. They credited me.
Okay.
So part of why I left social work was because firstly it was a bit too intense for me in terms of just the emotional expectations. And then I also discovered industrial sociology. Then with industrial sociology, I found my passion. But I had to be strategic in that I wanted a job. So with industrial sociology, I knew I'm likely to stay in academia for quite a while before I work as in industrial sociology. But I was like, okay, what way do I merge these interests?
Sure, guys. Just a difference between industrial sociology and
Industrial sociology is more about understanding industrial relations in the sense, unions, protest activity. Like I remember the time I was in...
No, don't laugh. Why is here? Why is everyone laughing at me?
No. You understand?
Are you guys also laughing at home? Please don't laugh. Yes.
No, with industrial sociology, I really loved industrial sociology. Oh my God. So in the time I was doing industrial sociology, it was the Marikana massacre. And so we would research what led to that, what went wrong in terms of what is this, the response of the business, the response of the miners. It's just going into depth of industrial relations in South Africa. Of course, beyond that, but in industrial relations in South Africa. So I really loved industrial sociology, but I was like, I'm not going to get a job after graduating with industrial sociology. So I segued. That's your word. Is that it?
Segue.
I segued. I segued into industrial psych, which I equally love. So why was I saying these things to you guys?
Well, you were telling us about industrial psychology.
Why was I telling you guys about this?
Because I asked what's industrial. So you talked about dropping
Oh,
out.
the whole confusion.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also don't remember why you started the topic. Sometimes
Anyway,
it's like she's going somewhere with this. I trust you.
I think it was mainly because of when I got to varsity, a Bachelor of Arts. Oh yes, it was a whole unemployment thing.
Sure,
You're unlikely. So the reason I segued is because I wanted to increase my possibilities of getting a job fresh out of varsity. You know, and even then I had to go to honors level. With a Bachelor of Arts, it's unlikely you're going to get a job fresh out of varsity. That's the reality. A lot of Bachelor of Arts students need to go up, which they don't know hardly when we gather there and go to a Bachelor of Arts.
You know, can I just say, because I know there's a lot of people that, like, someone is registered for a BA and they are quite frustrated.
Yes.
I always tell my students that if you have chosen to take like a Bachelor of Arts, the amount of just skills that you get equipped with, just amazing. So when I look at my training now, there's a lot of things I would not have gotten from a department of psychology. I needed to take gender studies. I think actually in my third year, I was so good in sociology that my lecturers were asking, you are applying for honors, right? With us. And I mean, I always knew that, no, I want to be a psychologist. But how do I bring this? Because like societal issues still like I think, but I also want to be a psychologist, and then I'm doing this gender
and
studies.
there's an intersectionality in it, how the social issues plague somebody's psychology, like how we look at how apartheid affects men's psyche and families and
Right.
I love that. Yeah.
And now, like when I look at my research interests, I look at what I do, I'm like,
What is your research interest?
So really the intersectionality of gender, race and class. I do like my PhD is on on transformation, and I'm tracing Black women academics' lived experiences in academia, and I'm doing
Why can you be participant of your study?
Really?
I'm a Black woman in academia.
How can I tell you? So I'm studying women that are part of the NGAP. So it's an academic development program.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
But still, that's a lovely study.
I think so. And I mean,
is.
since the day I got ethical clearance, I've just loved it. Like, I think now that I'm trying to,
ethics is the like,
you know,
what are we doing until then?
right? Because like after the pressure of getting your proposal through, you're like, okay, now I have to actually do the study. And then you do the study, and then the study like is too long. Like you're not finishing. But I've loved it from day one.
That is nice.
And when I look at the theories that I use, like I intersectionality, critical race theory, queer theory, so all the things that I'm reading, I'm like, oh, that was in a reading in gender studies. Oh, I remember this in sociology. So I always say, if you have a BA and you just don't do like a ramble of things. If you take sociology, take like 4 or 3 or 2 solid sociology modules that year, and then major in anthropology if that's something you want to do, gender studies, psychology, so that by the end of it you do have that choice.
And use your varsity resources, like go to that I don't know, I can't remember what they called, but I literally, when I went back after dropping out, I sat down with a lady who helped me carve out my curriculum to get the most out of
your
it.
faculty officer.
So sit with those faculty officers and figure out how you're going to make this degree work for you.
I actually love what you're saying, because I'm also in academia, and there are students at the end of honors who are like, where to from here?
What do I do
if
now?
I don't do masters? If
And
I don't, what do I do with this degree, ma'am? And to sit and be like, okay, here are your options afterwards. It's so important, because better.
Even your combination of modules, like she said, 4 of sociology is about this, that can happen in your first year, but have more streamlining as you go forward. And don't make that streamlining happen by
fluke and chance.
Now
and
I'm here, I have to do this thing. So just take ownership of your Bachelor of Arts. And I mean, when we speak about the fact that it's a bit difficult to get a job post your undergrad, there's also a lot of possibilities, like you can go into consulting companies, but that goes back to the episode that we spoke on about careers. The only way you're able to go to consulting companies is if you put yourself out there, participate in different things, So something else I wanted to do, my favorite thing about my undergrad and Bachelor of Arts is just my thinking. It really teaches you critical thinking,
critical reading, critical writing, thinking.
And that's why a lot of science subjects these days are forcing people to do humanities,
philosophy.
Yes, or something in humanities. Just so we can have a broader understanding of our society. Your degree is more than just.
They made us do it in first year. I never realized why, but I hear what you're saying.
Yes, because you find that some scientists are so. You don't have, I'm treating you, I'm dealing with you as this person, but there's so many other contextual factors that impact you as a human being, and BA teaches you that.
I love that. Actually, as we're doing this, I'm realizing I think we need to have a series on different careers, because this one has helped me a lot. I've always been a huge admirer of the psychology space and the psychologist, but I actually don't think I knew much about like how, what, who, what are the different spaces. I mean, it's so easy to know about a cardiologist and a psychiatrist.
And the exposure we have to them.
Yes, but this one, I really didn't have any exposure. As you explain the different wings and spheres, I'm like, there's so much to psychology.
There's so much to
that. And perfect timing now towards the end of the year, you guys are going to be choosing degrees next year.
Yeah.
So at least this is, so I think this is actually a very constructive conversation.
So sometimes it's called a Bachelor of Social Sciences in other universities. And then it's going to be a BA in other universities.
Okay, but then tell me now, with just the degree, what can somebody do?
Not much. Hey. So I mean, the reality is that just there's not enough jobs. There's actually something you guys spoke about. I think you were talking about AI. I'm not sure, in one of the episodes, and how that is like you are competing against that as well. We're competing against each other because there's limited job opportunities. So there's not really much you can do. But BAs are not created to fit into the workplace, and that's probably something that we need. University should straight up tell you that you do know that this is not going to lead you into a specific job, but you will get skills that will enable you to work in these environments. So people with BAs will do well in non-profit organizations, NGOs. There are good writers, speech writers. There's like a variety of things that you can do, but it really is like a stepping stone. Like it's not it. Like you don't have this degree and now this is it. But another thing is you need to be very strong academically. And I always say your first year, you can afford to like try and figure out life, but you quickly have to do good. Like in your second year, you need to be catching, like you need to be like just trying to get better grades, and the hope is that by second year, like things have already calmed down, you are familiar with the environment. Now you are, starting to, like things are starting to settle also in your mind that, I am here, starting to think about your future. So you do need to like be quite strong, right? Because then sociology too, if you want to do honors in sociology, that's competitive. Universities have this little money, so they can't train 100 people in 1 year. So you come to my university, or university I'm at, and we'll tell you we can only train 80 honor students.
It's crazy how the competition gets narrower and narrower,
right?
And once you get into master, you think you've made it.
I
remember when I was applying for honors, they only took 6 people in the class, and then I remember not going to the interview because there's an honors interview, because I thought surely, as soon as I heard the number, I had applied, but I heard the number and I was like, obviously. And then what my professor called and said, hey, you didn't come to the interview. And I said, you want to see me? Because you're just so surprised as the numbers keep narrowing down. You're like, I worked so hard to keep competing, So the part of staying academically strong, it never stops.
It never stops.
It never ever stops.
And then there's like, with then like coming back to psychology, you're doing then your honors, you have 1 year, you're doing your honors. And there's a thing that I see now also with my students, that you've been working for 3 years, trying to be the top, and we've selected you, and we have like, you are probably like the top 2% that we could take. Now you're here. And there's a thing that happens to their minds where like, partly you feel that relief, but then we also immediately have to remind you that there's masters, like keep pushing. But now you're not just pushing your grades. We also want you to be a wholesome person. We want you to be able to be aware of the world around you.
You see, she's got her lecturer and coordinator hat on now. Okay, I just want you guys to view the transition.
The inside tip.
The inside tip. We've got an inside person here. I love this.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, they're my babies. So like I coordinate an honors program and I see them struggle. And I have this conversation in January and I do a check-in in June. And by this time, like morale is low, like October, November, because they're like, what am I going to do? Next, and there's a way to come back, And I know when people hear that, but you were smart, like I am aware of people that didn't do too well. There's a way to go back and fix your second year so that you can compete with the person with 90%. Yes, and chances are when you come back as a 25-year-old, you're gonna do much better. So rather go and like re-enroll for that first year, even though you've got a degree. There's a thing called non-degree purposes where you can take modules like without graduating or enrolling into a bachelor.
Just to up that mark
so that you can compete well into honors. You get into honors, maintain those grades because they still want you to do good. But then it's not just that. Now we want to see how are you as a person? We want your interpersonal skills.
I'm glad we're touching on this part before we close off, because I've heard that you can get very good marks. Yeah. And then how wholesome, man. And then not make it into the master's degree. Like, what is that about?
But in defense of the discipline, or at least my colleagues who are sitting in these rooms and deciding who's going to be a psychologist and who's not, you don't want a person that's going to do further damage. Like you want just think about it. You are going to be holding.
Thank you. To your colleagues. Actually, I hear you. It's such a sensitive career.
It's a sensitive career. So you can't just take noma ngubani, you know. And at times, we're not saying, well, you will never make it as a psychologist. We're saying maybe go and do something for like 6 months, because sometimes
Mature, grow up,
you know,
come
sometimes
back.
you need to go and work on McDonald's. Ufunda abantu ngesixhosa. Like learn how to work with people, just be in a space where you are not important or that important. Read books, you know, travel like between the Eastern Cape and Joburg, like, because you've not had that time,
Human
you've
experience,
right,
yeah.
like have then like gain that experience and then come and bring that, because also what will happen is that you will realize that actually I don't want to be this kind of psychologist, because you know, I will always ask a person that wants to be a clinical psychologist, that is your office a hospital? Like when you think about your life, like you are in your 30s, you have your job, when you think, bah, this is where I'm working, where do you imagine yourself? You know, and oftentimes it's not that. So maybe let's read more, let's talk to other people that are in the field, and you can take other courses. You can take like a basic counseling skills course where you train that part of you that probably was not trained by the books, right? You volunteer somewhere, you work, you know, there's a lot of other things that you can do to like sharpen the person then that will be holding other people in therapy, in practice.
Wow.
And just to go back to the whole counseling course, so it is an option for someone who wants to do counseling without.
Yes, because you hear people say that I'm not a therapist, I'm a counselor. What does that mean?
Right. So, I mean, outside of the HPCSA, so with the HPCSA, there's a thing called registered counselor. So then there'll be like still similar to a counseling psychologist. There's often an overlap between a counseling psychologist and a registered counselor. So there's also like a lot of debate currently happening about whether do we still need that, because then the rate is different, but you tend to do similar work as that of a counseling psychologist. So a lot of people are now moving away from that, but it's something that you can do with after your honors, right? It's an option that you can go and intern somewhere, then you register with the HPCSA, and then you work at whatever organization as a lay counselor. But there's other options where you can work for companies like South African Depression and Anxiety Group, Lifeline, FAMSA, and they will train you. And I mean, you don't need a degree. You're just a person that feels that I love helping people. I would like to work in this field, and they'll probably train you for like a small fee for like 3 months, and that gives you also the practical experience of being on the other side of the call, or you know, sitting this side of the chair where you hold someone and you see, is this something that I want to do? Because it's not easy, and not all of us can sit with like see 4 people with 4 different things, you know, in a day, you know. So I think it's always nice, you know, to train you, and will help you really think if this is something you want to do.
She's talking to me. Maybe to you too. I absolutely loved this conversation. I needed clarity around the discipline of psychology and just what it entails, the different spaces. And thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you. Bonga, thank you so much as always. That was today's episode of The Conversation Capital. For now though, goodbye and God bless.